For decades, there was no greater threat to a mafia family than another mafia family. They'd fight for territory, money, and power. But now it's different, so they came up with an idea. They would offer the mafia members a deal. Two of them even had their feet out, relaxing. Just your typical day at the office. Until suddenly everything changes. A car pulls up beside them. A hail of bullets fires into the vehicle, and within seconds, 17 men are dead. Basically, the mafia is made up of 5 families in New York City. They were deciding how much the pizzo was going to be for construction sites, illegal gambling, and lots of other things. Basically, they were setting the rules for everyone else. But there was one problem. There were too many cooks in the kitchen. They control everything: gambling, drugs, construction, loans, you name it. They wanted to double it. Everyone else refused, so the Gambinos left the meeting furious. They went home and called their boss. He explained that they had insulted him by refusing to double the pizzo. He needed them dead. Joseph didn't ask any questions. He knew that if Paul asked him to do something, it meant that it was necessary. He hung up the phone and got to work. They told him that the other families would not agree to double the taxes. The 3 killers followed the vehicle. They drove slowly behind it, keeping a safe distance. When they were sure that they were being followed, the driver of the van turned around and looked in the rearview mirror. He saw the 3 strange cars and he started to panic. On the other end of the line was a man named Joseph Massino. The government stepped in and arrested several members of the Gambino crime family. Joseph Massino was sentenced to 100 years in prison. Salvatore Victoria was sentenced to 60 years, and James Vario was sentenced to 50 years. Dennis Scaramucci commented, "I believe there are still mafia families active in Las Vegas. If so, how much power do they still have? Leave your thoughts below. We're always looking forward to reading what you have to say. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Don't miss out on our newest episodes. We'll see you next time." It's proof. During the pandemic shutdown, when casinos were closed, they lost their big money source, and crime dropped dramatically. Another user commented, "Interesting to note, the mafia earned their money mainly through protection racketeering. As such, their income was directly proportional to the amount of economic activity going on in the world. During the Great Depression, for example, their income fell dramatically. Same thing happened during COVID lockdowns. Crime goes down when people have money. It goes up when people are desperate." The men in the back of the van opened the door and started to run, but it was too late. Salvatore fired his gun and James joined in. Within seconds, the men in the back of the van were dead. He was a capo regime, which means that he was a captain in the family. Joseph was loyal to Paul. The van crashed into a tree and burst into flames. 3 of the men in the van were dead. The killer's plan was to wipe out the leadership of the other 4 families. They would then be the only family left, and they would control everything. The driver was taken to the hospital, but he died soon after. He would do anything his boss asked of him. They said that they needed to do something about it. All businesses must pay a fee to the mafia, otherwise known as the pizzo. If you want to hear more about the mafia, stay tuned. We have lots more videos coming up. Their names were Salvatore Victoria and James Vario. They were both killers for hire. They would do whatever their boss asked of them without hesitation. He was a ruthless killer who had worked his way up from the bottom. They picked a location near where the meeting was going to take place. He staked out the area for hours, waiting for the perfect moment. He was very powerful, and he was not happy after hearing this news. He sat in his mansion and thought long and hard about what to do. He couldn't let the other families embarrass him. He needed to show them who was really in charge. So he decided to send a message. If the business owner refuses, they will face dire consequences, like having their shop burned down, or worse, being whacked. If they turned informant, then they would get a lighter sentence. What's crazy is that this program still exists today. And if you're a mafia member and you're watching this, you can turn informant right now, and you could go free. The biggest enemy of the mafia is no longer another mafia family. It's the government. In this episode, we're going to talk about one mistake that cost 17 lives in the mafia. But first, let's get into today's mafia fact. In the early 1980s, the Italian government was desperate to stop the mafia. Now let's get back to the video. These men were all sitting in a car. They were chatting amongst themselves and smoking cigarettes. The men were sitting in a 1983 Ford Econoline van. They were meeting together to discuss upcoming criminal activities. Most of the men knew each other and were associates of the Bonanno crime family. The assassination took place on November 24, 1985. It was in a neighborhood in Brooklyn called Marine Park. This was not just a regular event. This was a mafia summit. There were 15 men inside the van and 2 men in the other vehicle. The men who died were all gangsters. Several of them were high-ranking members of the Bonanno family. So why were they all killed? Who wanted them dead and who ordered the hit? Well, if you've watched our other videos, you know how the mafia works. The Bonanno family, along with 4 other families, met together to set the terms for the upcoming year. The Gambino crime family had sent several members to the meeting, and they had a completely different idea of what the Paizo should be. The boss of the Gambino crime family was named Paul Castellano. He pulled out a phone and dialed a number. Paul told Joseph that he needed him to take care of the other family bosses. Joseph reached out to 2 other killers in the family. They were experts at taking people out. The 3 men planned out the hit carefully. They knew that the other bosses would be meeting soon, so they needed to strike quickly. Finally, they saw the van pull up outside the house. He knew that something was wrong. He turned to his friends and told them to get down. The driver tried to speed away, but he was hit several times. In total, 17 men were killed in the shooting. It was the most ambitious attack in mafia history. But the plan didn't work. Today, the mafia is not what it once was. It has been weakened by informants and arrests, but it is still around. Now, before we go, let's look at some of the comments from our last video. Mafia princes for hire. Now it's time for you to leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Do you think the mafia is still around today?